Hey, Grandfam. Let's see. I'm feeling really called to do a kind of crash course on brain science. What is going on inside neurobiologically as it relates to emotional eating, weight loss, weight gain, all of it, coping mechanisms, etc. Because it is so it's the root of everything. Hi, if you're struggling with emotional eating, you have to know what's going on inside your brain because your emotions live in your brain. And if you want to understand how to stop turning to food and dieting and weight loss and other things in order to cope with your emotions, you have to actually understand what is going on neurobiologically. And I'm at a point now where I don't think you can actually address it without understanding it. What up? I feel like I have to do this. Hey, and I've gotten a lot of questions about it, so I invite you to leave them all here so that I can actually speak to them. Hello, because it's so important. You have to understand what you're trying to change. So let's just start there. Hey, so the other day I started this video and I was talking about how everything that you encounter in your life to your brain, it's not your conscious cognitive thought, it's your animal brain, your amygdala. Everything that you encounter in the world, every person, every situation, every place, every thought, everything is interpreted by your brain as either stress or stress relief. That's what I was saying the other day, is that it almost just comes down to this seesaw of things that are stressing you out and things that are providing you relief. But then I started thinking more about it, and it actually, if you really want to understand what's going on neurobiologically, it's not just stress and stress relief. What it actually really is at the surface, what up, Kate, is that it's safety or danger. I'm going to say that again. It's not necessarily stress and stress relief. It is, and we'll get there. But what it really is fundamentally is safety or danger. Why? Because your brain, your animal brain, the amygdala that we share with all of the animals on the planet is wired for survival. It's not wired for you to get a good job. It doesn't give a shit about what you have to manage. It doesn't know about your income and your mortgage. It doesn't know anything other than, is it safety or is it danger? Period. So that's what we have to start with. That's how your brain is wired. It doesn't matter what you know as a human, because we have all this other brain that lizards don't have. It doesn't matter what you know cognitively. All you have to know is that everything you encounter is safety or danger. Why does this matter? Because when you are... Okay, let's start there. Okay, so safety are the things that make you feel good. Danger. Why is everything danger? Why does our brain think that we're constantly being threatened and almost dying from something? Why? We know better. Our brain doesn't know. Why? Because the brain doesn't know the difference between all of your stressors. So what is stress really? That's what we have to start with. We can't respond to stress differently if we don't understand it. What is stress? Stress is a survival mechanism. Well, how? I'm stressed all the time and it's not helping me survive at all. It's actually sabotaging my survival. It's not though, because the initial purpose, let's say, for stress is, for example, this is always going to be the example. There's a lion chasing you in the jungle, right? You see the lion, you get stressed. It activates your fight, flight, freeze stress response. That's why it's called the stress response. Your amygdala is activated. It sends out the cortisol hormone, that's your stress hormone. You see the lion, you run, and then your life is saved. The purpose of stress is to save your life from other dangerous things that are coming at you because, again, we're wired for survival. Stress is a beautiful thing that saves your life. The problem is that your brain doesn't know the difference between a lion, a tiger, and a bear, and your mortgage payment, the red light in traffic, and your boss who's an asshole. Your brain doesn't know because all cortisol is the same. period. Stress is stress is stress is stress is stress. So if you're stressed out and your amygdala is activated, you're in your fight or flight response, and you're going through the stress response, your brain doesn't know that everything is actually okay. It doesn't know that you're sitting in a desk in your cubicle. All it knows is that your boss is screaming at you, and it's having the same exact neurobiological effect as if you're being chased by a lion in a jungle. Are you with me so far? Seriously, if you're here, tell me if this makes sense so far. All stress is the same. That's like step number 1, okay? So by saying all stress is the same, what I'm also saying is because all stress is the same, the other part of this is that all stress relief. Okay, so 2 things. Thank you guys. Thank you for your comments. So now I'm trying to multitask, and I clearly can't. But the reason this matters, okay, is because all stress, as I think you understand at this point, is not just stress, it's danger. All stress, whether it's a lion, tiger, bear, mortgage payment, Instagram, or text message, doesn't matter. Not only is it stress, that's what I was saying the other day, but what I need you to know now is that it's actually danger. All stress equals imminent danger to your brain. So I'm going to get to like how this all comes full circle, but that's the beginning of it. The other thing your brain doesn't know, your survival amygdala brain, is that just like all cortisol is cortisol, all stress is stress, all happy chemicals are happy chemicals. So there's 4 of them. If you've listened to any of my speeches, you've heard this before. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Those are the happy chemicals. So they all have different functions. They make you feel a little bit differently. Endorphins, for example, is associated with physical activity. That feeling when you like kill it on the treadmill or you lift a heavy weight or whatever. Endorphins is our natural painkiller. So endorphins are released when you go through something hard, basically. That's one. Oxytocin, that's what is released when you have orgasms. That's what makes sex feel so good. It's the bonding community kind of chemical. We're social beings. That's oxytocin's role. They all have a purpose. Dopamine and serotonin, these are the 2 we really need to deal with if you're here to talk about emotional eating. Why? Every single time you eat food, dopamine and serotonin are released in your brain. That we need to repeat. Every single time you eat food, yes, any food, 2 of the 4, 50% of the happy chemicals that exist in our brain neurobiologically are released. So your brain, again, doesn't know what is stressing it out. It also doesn't know what is making it feel good. All it knows is that there is stress and that there is stress relief. Why does this matter? Again, because just like all stress is danger, and that's why that matters, all stress relief is safety. That's it. This is why I said the other day, it's actually very simple. I'm not saying it's easy. It's very simple, though, to understand. Our brain works in a seesaw. And every time I give a speech, I use the image of like a scale, because that's what it is. And so instead of saying ultimately it's stress and stress relief, what really matters is that it's either safety or danger. Are you still with me? Does this all make sense still? Because the reason all of this ultimately matters is that if your primary source, or if it's just a source of happy chemicals, if part of where you're getting, and this is why I need you to know, happy chemicals is the same as stress relief, is the same as safety, which is to say, if your source of psychological, neurobiological safety, if the only way that you communicate to your animal brain that you're not in imminent danger is eating food or dieting and weight loss, because it could be either one, then you're wrapped up in emotional eating. Please let me know if this all makes sense, because it is a lot, and it's like condensing a whole lot into a little bit, but that's how this actually works. So this is the reason why I don't believe in self-sabotage. Sometimes it can be, and sometimes it is. But for anyone who says, I keep sabotaging myself because, I don't want to be eating and I can't stop eating or whatever, you're not sabotaging anything. You're actually giving your brain exactly what it needs. If you're turning to food, I love those. If you're turning to food on a physical level, it means there's a psychological need that's not being met. Which is all to say, if you're in a place where you're turning to food or dieting, it can be both, the question becomes, what are you not getting from everything else? And that's basically, what I'm here for and what I address and what I clarify for people. And if you want to know, because some people are like, how does weight loss work the same way? Right? It's pretty straightforward. You put food in your body, your happy chemicals are produced in your brain. That's straightforward. Everyone knows that food can make you feel better, okay? Why does dieting feel good? Why would it be the same in terms of not eating as much versus overeating? So that's a question I get a lot, which is also why in the last speech I gave, I found it so necessary to talk about dieting addiction, which is something that's not recognized as a real thing yet. But here's why. And I'm going to go back to the fact that your brain doesn't know the source. Let's just stick with that. Your brain doesn't know the source. Your brain only knows, is it getting more stressed, danger, or is it getting happy chemicals, stress relief and safety? That's all it knows. Okay, so, and I'll get to your question, but, so the way that this works is, for example, okay, imagine you go on a diet. What feels good? Like, what makes you feel good? Where do your happy chemicals come from? For example, you wake up, you get on the scale, you see the number go down. How good does that feel? Then you put on a pair of pants that are a size smaller. How good does that feel? Then you get to work and someone says, you've lost weight. How good does that feel? Dieting, even though you feel like shit physically, is like a drug psychologically. Because again, your brain doesn't know where the happy chemicals are coming from. All it knows is that you're no longer in imminent danger. And thank you so much for getting us out of imminent danger. All your brain knows is that the best way to feel reward in your brain is to get on the scale every morning and make yourself feel rewarded for losing weight. Does this make sense? Your brain doesn't know what makes you feel good. All it knows is that it's out of danger. So your happy chemicals, your source of happy chemicals, can come from eating food or from losing weight if weight loss is your goal. Either way, physically, they're very different. Psychologically, they're the exact same thing, like literally exact same thing. You do a thing, you feel good, there's reward, boom, happy. Okay, so now I want to read these. Definitely does feel good when I restrict. When I binge overeat, I feel like shit. Yes, okay. So what would I not be getting? So if I binge/overeat, I'm not getting something. That is a good way to look at it, in my opinion. So there's... When it so when it comes to binging and overeating, here's the reason that this is hard. Because every single person could be, and this is what I know as a coach, as a social worker, as anything. You could have 10 different people who have the same exact behavior around food, who do the same exact thing in the same exact way to the same exact extent at the same time. You get what I'm saying? You could have 10 people who all struggle with the same thing for all different reasons. So part of the reason that I am so committed to working one-on-one with people is because there is no blanket statement. I can't tell you what you're missing. I can tell you that food and eating is probably serving a psychological purpose. It's not serving a physical purpose. You don't feel good. You don't want to be eating. So what I know is that there's something there, but there is no way for me to tell you what that is if I don't know what the situation is for you. What are you missing? What do you feel like you need more of? Whatever. But I would say that there is something there to explore. Anyone who is, and what I realized the other day, that part of how I can communicate this is when you're feeling, let's see, I don't even know if I can communicate this yet. Yes, the something is so personal and individual. Exactly. So yes, it's something emotional. And how do we know that, right? Like some people are like, I'm not an emotional eater. I don't know if I'm an emotional eater or whatever. I think the best way to put it is if you are ever, if you are ever eating food when you're not physically hungry, or you're eating food when you don't want to be, when you feel out of control around food and eating, when you're acting around food, eating, dieting even, in a way that you don't want to be, that's it. That's how you know. Because food and eating and dieting in your body and whatever have stopped serving a purpose on the physical dimension. You're not using food for physical hunger. What else could it be? Like, it's either filling you physically or it's filling you emotionally, psychologically, spiritually. That's it. Or you wouldn't be using it. So I think if there's ever a question, why is this happening? Why am I doing this? What is it? Unless I work with you one-on-one, genuinely, I will not be able to tell you. And I don't tell you. You know the answer. I just help you figure it out. But that's the thing. That's why. That's why I never have the answers. Because I don't. You do. And I help you get there. And I help you identify them. And I help you figure out what's getting in the way. And et cetera, et cetera. But that's the thing. It is always so it's personal and unique and individual. And that I feel is all that I can kind of say without, like coaching you one-on-one. And if you want to do that, obviously I'm here for that. If anyone ever, maybe this should be a good idea, if anyone ever wants to volunteer and we can have a video of it and you can see kind of maybe how this goes or something. But that's why anyone on Instagram, on the internet, on anything that is I know what your issue is, I want you to really consider that. No, they don't. You barely know what your issue is. And ultimately, you're the one with the answers. So that's what I'm going to say on that. So I think it looks like most of what I've said has made sense. And if you have any other questions, please leave them here, now, because I'm so happy to continue the conversation and just give you more of kind of what you want and what you've been looking for. But I think the ultimate, I know that some of the question I'm going to get is, okay, I understand, cool story on brain science, but what do I do about it? How do I apply this to my own life? And I completely understand that. But again, my source of happy chemicals is not yours. The things that make me feel safe are not the things that make you feel safe, and, vice versa. So on some level, there is no answer to that. On another level, though, really, it is so simple. You have to identify what makes you feel any of the happy chemicals. What makes you feel motivated, excited, rewarded, connected, loved, appreciated, anything. Guilt. Okay, so that's a good question. I'll get there too. But if you're wondering, how do I implement this? There are some suggestions that I could give you, but the most important thing is that you identify things that work for you, that serve you, that literally it is this easy, guys. It is this easy. Identify things that make you feel good. That is how you implement this. I mean, identify them and actually go do them and put them into your life. That's how you do this. You're so welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy work. So that's how this actually works. And that can be another conversation for another day. And if you have specific questions, please let me know. But my point is that the reason that I want you to know how simple this is so you can actually start to use this in your own life. It's not as hard as like, gee, what's going to release a happy chemical? Now I have to figure this out. Anything that makes you feel any positive emotion is going to bring down the amount of danger your brain thinks it's in. And the less danger your brain is in, the less you need food to bring you safety. Does that all make sense? Like eating fast food when you don't feel like cooking or eating a pint of ice cream, guilt. Don't feel guilty when I eat brown rice and grilled chicken. Don't worry, I wasn't afraid of that. Okay, so I think, this is a great question. Kate, yes. Okay, so, Patty, I will get to you, but Kate, thank you for bringing this into the conversation. So Kate is the client that I spoke about, one of the clients that I actually spoke about in my last speech, because it all happened this way. And so she says, I'll give an example. I've worked with Lisa, bubble bath, mani-pedis, walking my dog, painting, etc. So I literally, and Kate, you can, say this, that all I do is sit there and say, when you were 5 years old, what did you enjoy doing? When you were 10 years old, what did you enjoy doing? What are all the things that brought you joy before you became an adult and you told yourself that you didn't have time for it and that it was expensive and that it wasn't worth it and that it didn't matter and that you were being needy or all the things that you grew up and just stopped bringing into your life because you're an adult now. Do those things. And so for Kate, it was, I love bubble baths and mani-pedis, walking my dog, painting, etc., etc. And so she started to do all of these things, stress relief things, happy chemical things, safety things, and then it all kind of happened naturally. Like the weight came off and etc., etc. But this is literally how it works. And I lost weight. LOL. Exactly. So that's how this works, is like, and this is why when people are like, oh, all weight loss is a diet. Like, I literally told her to take a bubble bath. I don't consider that a diet. And so that's exactly how this works, and that's where I'm at on that. And so Patty, to get to your question on guilt, to be completely honest, I feel like it's a little bit of a different conversation because there's so much to say on it. One of the things is, I love actually what a client told me the other day when I asked her, how did she get to a point where she's feeling less guilty around food? And she said, she thinks of herself as a child. And if you work with me, you know that inner child work is always kind of part of this. But I would say honestly that if you imagine, 5-year-old you being like, I just wanted an ice cream cone, are you going to be like, well, now you should probably burn all the calories off, like, you lazy piece of shit, or like whatever, like you don't. And I think generally, if you find that you're beating yourself up about something, the answer is going to be stop beating yourself up about it. And so again, like, there's a whole lot of stuff to say on this, but I would say, I think some of it is, you want to eat and you're a human and you survive on food, and that's okay. That's okay. The other thing is, if you're eating food that you're not eating because you're hungry, you're eating because you're emotional, I think it's the same thing. I think you're a human, and that's okay. And instead of all the guilt and the shame and the regret and the blame and all of that, could you try and say, hey, could you try and just play around with, wow, it seems like you're really stressed out because you're emotionally eating and you're out of control around food. And what do you need? Like, what is it that you need that you're not getting? And I personally think it's easier to always have this conversation imagining yourself as the inner child. Like, what is it that you need? What are you calling out for? Like, whatever. Because if you start to just consider that food is serving a purpose, it doesn't deserve shame. And the thing is, like, and I've said this before in speeches, if you've identified that food and eating is a coping mechanism, and that not eating, restricting, and dieting is a coping mechanism, and you find yourself doing it, what I think you want to remember above all things is that it's your source of safety, period. And that's why I just talked about this. Because your source of happy chemicals, your source of stress relief is all to say that it's your brain's source of safety and survival. And so if you're sitting there saying, I don't want to eat this, I don't want to eat this, I don't want to eat this, like beating yourself up about eating it, well, that's only going to make your cortisol go higher and your need for emotional comfort to increase and all of that. But if you can just sit and say, this is a safety thing. And I've said before, I don't think anyone deserves shame, blame, guilt, and regret for seeking out safety, comfort, and protection. And that's it. So again, there's a lot I could say about guilt, but ultimately, if you start to look at it psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, and forget what's happening physically on the surface, it's just what's happening physically on the surface is just a reflection of what's going on inside. So if you forget about the food and you just consider, what does the food mean? What is the food bringing you? What is the food giving you that you clearly need? Safety, protection, comfort, love, connection. So what you're saying really is, how do I stop beating myself up for trying to feel loved? I don't think you have to beat yourself up for trying to feel loved or safe or whatever it is for you. Again, it's different for everyone, but I think that's what it is give yourself what you need. Don't try to beat it out of you. I mean, that never works. We all know that hasn't worked so far, and it also doesn't feel very good. So I would say, what is it like for you to sit there, after a binge, after you've just eaten all this food that you don't like, that, you don't like that you ate it, can you still sit there and say, I understand that I wish I didn't eat this food, but food is my source of safety. And I guess right now I feel like I need safety. How do you want to beat that person up? That's where I'm coming from. That's how I understand it, and that's how I've worked through it, like in myself. Was I had this very eureka moment literally during a meditation once, where it occurred to me and I felt every bone in my body was in agreement that I was only over 300 pounds at one point in my life because I was seeking safety from food. And I immediately felt all the shame and guilt kind of just evaporate, because that's it. I was seeking safety. I was doing what I had to do, and I don't need to hate myself for that. I'm a human being. You're a human being. It's okay that we use food for emotional reasons. It's either food or something else, guys. It could be worse, believe it or not. So we're just humans doing a human thing. And that's okay. Allow yourself the humanity of that. And there was something else I was just going to say, but I totally forgot. But I hope... what do you guys think of this? What do you think of hearing this? How did you feel about all of this? Because that's going to be my answer. Is always just stop being mean to yourself. Once you start being on the same team, everything happens naturally. All the mini talks inside are so valuable. I mean, always. We live with ourselves forever. So the best thing you can do is learn how to like be nice to yourself, because you're going to be in there forever. Labeling food is hard not to do. Still a work in progress though. Girl, it's always a work in progress. It's all a work in progress. We're all always a work in progress. Everything is. And when you think you're done, something will happen that proves to you that you're not done. So that's okay. I would just keep working on it. Just keep doing what you're doing. And the more you can forgive, the more you can practice understanding, accepting, and forgiving that your safety comes from food, or your safety comes from dieting, or comes from both, I think the best you're going to be, the better you're going to be, the best you're going to be. That's the best thing you can do, is just understand, this is what I use for safety. Some people use alcohol. Some people use drugs. Some people use sex and gambling and coffee and shopping. And for us, it's food. And that's okay. It's just a human thing. So, having said all of that, any other questions? Was this helpful? Does this make sense? Do you want more of this? Do you never want to hear me talk about brains again? Because if that's the case, just unfollow me. It's so important. Anything else at all, I will stick around for another like couple seconds. But that's what I felt I had to share with all y'all today. And if not, I hope you all, what day is it? I don't even know where I am right now. Wednesday. It's Wednesday. Happy hump day and happy everything. Happy not beating yourself up anymore. And yeah, if anyone has any questions, obviously I'm here. Slide into the DMs, and that's that. I love you all. Mwah. Thank you for coming. Bye. And